Good morning. Today, the House Republican Conference is joined by the families of 4 of the over 200 hostages taken by barbaric Hamas terrorists on October 7th. As a mother, sister, and daughter, my heart breaks for the unspeakable pain they are enduring every second of every day. On this issue of standing with Israel and these families, there can be no moral equivocation. As Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu stated last week, this war is, quote, between the forces of civilization and the forces of barbarism. It is a time for everyone to decide where they stand, end quote. Horrifically, the Jewish people have suffered their bloodiest days since the Holocaust, with acts of inhumane evil committed by Hamas terrorists backed by Iran. In fact, this week marks 85 years since Kristallnacht, the pogroms unleashed during the Night of Broken Glass, and the aftermath they wrought shocked the conscience of the globe and led then U.S. President FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, to proclaim, quote, I myself could scarcely believe that such things could occur in a 20th century civilization. The unspeakable atrocities of today have been met by some with callous cruelty in our own 21st century United States. Posters of innocent victims have been ripped down. American universities failing to protect their Jewish students from intimidation, harassment, and violence. And just yesterday, an elderly Jewish man in Los Angeles was beaten to death by a pro-Palestine protester. Hear this loudly and clearly. House Republicans stand with these families next to us. We stand with the Jewish community, and we stand like a rock, as our speaker said, with our most precious ally, Israel. We will do everything in our power to ensure that Israel has the resources to return every last hostage to their family from these Hamas terrorists. With that, I am honored to introduce our Speaker of the House, a great friend of Israel, Speaker Mike Johnson.
Thank you. Well, it's been said here, but today is the one-month anniversary of Hamas's horrific attack on the world's only Jewish state. The atrocities of that day and those following it have left a dark and indelible stain on the entire world. Everyone can see these atrocities. And as the Prime Minister Netanyahu said very clearly, this is a battle between light and darkness, between good and evil. As our cherished friend and ally Israel fights for its survival against the Iran-backed terrorists of Hamas, we will continue to stand up for human dignity and offer moral clarity. House Republicans understand that this moment demands decisive action, and we insist that we cannot waste any more time getting Israel the aid that it desperately needs. That's why, as the first act of my speakership, we passed a resolution condemning Hamas and reaffirming our solemn commitment to Israel. Days later, with bipartisan margins, we passed the Israel Security Supplemental Appropriations Act to provide billions in assistance to Israel in its time of great peril. And as we mark the one-month anniversary of this attack, House Republicans met with and heard from family members of some of the victims, not only to understand their grief and pain and worries, but to make clear why Israel must do everything in its power to wipe out Hamas and ensure that what happened October 7th can never happen again. I am honored to introduce these families to you today. And joining us here, I'll introduce, is Doris Leeper, who is representing her son, Guy Elus. Guy is a 26-year-old musician who is living in Tel Aviv. He was enjoying the Nova Music Festival on October 7th when the attack happened. All of his friends were murdered, and Guy sustained a gunshot wound while running away. There has been no update on his condition since October 7th. Also with us is Yonathan Lulu Shemriz and Idu Lulu Shemriz, who are representing their brother, Elon Shemriz. Elon is a 26-year-old computer science student living in Kfar Aza who was kidnapped from his home by Hamas terrorists. His family has worked around the clock to receive information about his health and his whereabouts. And finally, Liran Bamir, who is representing his brothers, Ziv and Gali Bamir. Ziv and Gali are 26-year-old twin brothers, both working in the music, sound, and lighting industry. They are inseparable best friends and young adults who love traveling the world. They were abducted from their home on October 7th, and the family has received no update on their health since. I would ask them to come forward, and we'll start with Ms. Doris. If you'd like to speak for a moment, we'd invite you to do so.
I'm Doris. I'm an American citizen. I was actually born in Queens, New York. Just say a few words about my son. I can go on and on, but Guy is 26 years old, very sensitive boy, humble, a musician with a great future. Works with the best famous rock bands in Israel as a sound technician and backliner. I'll just take you back to that day. It was actually a holiday, and I haven't seen Guy for a long time since he always works on weekends. But since it was a holiday, he came over. I made him a nice dinner, which he hardly ate because he was on phones. He was going to the festival. Guy is like the glue of the tribe. All the friends were always at home, music, and he was doing all his calls. And they drove 5 packed cars to the south to this peace festival. And I was happy because, he works so hard, so he's entitled to fun. And all was fine. The following morning, there was a siren. I just went to the safe room, which is actually Guy's room, crawled in his bed, didn't even open up the news. But still, I couldn't go back to sleep, so I call him. And he answers. He's like hyped. So I'm thinking it's from the party. It's early in the morning. And I asked him, did the forces evacuate you because there was a siren? And he says, we were evacuated. We evacuated ourselves. So, okay. And I asked him, okay, where are you driving? And he says, I don't know yet. I said, what do you mean you don't know yet? He said, you know what? I know exactly where I'm coming. I'm coming home. I said, why are you coming home in the morning? He lives in Tel Aviv. It's another half an hour drive to my home. So he says, I'm coming to eat the soup that I didn't eat yesterday. Which is also odd, but I don't care. Come drive safely. And then I get another call from his father, Michel. He's hysterical. And he's like yelling and saying, do you know where Guy is? I say, yeah, I know where Guy is. He's coming home. He'll be here in a half an hour. He says, no. He just called and he's in a terror attack. And his best friend is killed. That's what he said on the phone. And he tries to put me on the conference call. I hook up and we hear shots in the background. He actually called an emergency call since he was shot in the arm and he wasn't able to stop the bleeding. And he was trying to say his last words. He actually said, I want to say my last words. We're not going to survive it. Nobody survived it. Everybody is killed. And his father is just saying, don't talk. If you can find dead bodies, try and just crawl under a dead body so they don't notice. And so he says, no, it's an open area. He doesn't let it. His father doesn't let him speak. So he said, shush, don't talk, don't let them hear you. And I try to, tell him, Guy, I love you. don't worry, nothing's going to happen. I'm going to call now. I'm going to send somebody now to get you. And that's what I did. I hung up. And I regret that, since I didn't hear from him since. His father drove immediately to that place, but it was already closed by the police, no entry, and the next few hours were like crazy. Nobody knew anything. This continues on for the next few days. Nobody knows anything. It's like, we don't know if he's killed, if nobody even knew about, it's only like the next day that it spread out that there were hostages. For a week or so, I was just waiting to get a message that he was identified, but we didn't get that. You know, lucky me. What we did get was on I think it was Al Jazeera, I'm not sure, a video of a Hamas guy, you know, with saying that Guy Iluz was killed by Israeli bombing. That's the point I break down, of course. But I actually get an immediate call from the military, and they came over and they say, look, don't pay attention to these whatever the Hamas says, but the good news is that he's a hostage. And this goes on, these mind games. I get a call not even a week ago, somebody calling me saying, this is a confidential call. You cannot say anything about this call. We are now taking care of Guy's case. He's going to be put on the top of the list, and he's going to be freed. You just need to send me all his info, his passport, his ID, whatever you have, tattoos, whatever, and I just, you know, get there and just send anything I can. And then there's another siren, and I run to the safe room, and it was like crazy. I didn't know what to do, but I did call the military, my connection, and she says, I don't tell her because I'm afraid that his chances, like they did play with my mind, and I was saying, look, I can't tell you about the call. They told me it's confidential. I can't tell you. So she convinces me just to give the phone number of this lady that called, and yeah, it's mind games. And that it's just going on and on. I'm here because it's been 30 days. Every day is like eternity to me, and I can't wait any longer because I know that he was shot. I don't know anything. Maybe everything is we don't know. We don't have a list of the hostages. We don't know their condition. I don't have anything. So I need your help, basically. You know, I'm part of your people. You're part of Israel, and America has been like the best allies, and I'm so proud of being an American, being an Israeli as well. But I do need you now because there's nothing helping me now. I pray, which I didn't do before, but just please help me. Oh, and one other thing, if I can, I just forgot. This is Guy. okay? His best friend is a hostage too. This is Almog, his best friend. So that's it. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. We pray for both of them, and thank you for sharing your story. Jonathan and Edu, would you like to speak? Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us. My name is Jonathan. This is my brother Ido. We used to live in Kibbutz Kfar Aza for 30 years. I live with my wife and my 2-year-old daughter. Our parents live in the same kibbutz, a couple houses from me. Ido lives in the heart of the kibbutz. And our brother alone kidnapped from his house in the same kibbutz. In that Saturday, my wife waked me up to the sound of the alarms and the missiles. As we rushed to the safe room, I managed to grab my birthday cake of my daughter and some water, and we locked ourselves in the safe room. Meanwhile, Ido sent me a message that he is in the safeguard of the kibbutz, and they called them up to take the guns and fight. And in that point, we realized that we are under attack. So I locked the safe room. I told my wife to be with my daughter, and I told her that I will guard the door. As soon as we locked the safe room, we start to get messages from all around the kibbutz. The terrorists go inside houses and start killing people. Families, babies. Around 10 o'clock, my younger brother alone wrote me a message that he heard terrorists go inside his house. So I wrote him that I love him and he's strong. He sent me a heart emoji, and that's the last time we spoke. For the rest time in the safe room, we've been in an absolutely nightmare. I can stress, and you can imagine what it feels like to be in the safe room with your 7-month pregnant wife, with your 2-year-old daughter, when you hear all your friends being slaughtered inside the beds, when you hear all the terrorists going inside the kibbutz, inside civilians' houses, and wiped out families. Alon worked with us. We're a family business. He was a great guy. We do everything together, 3 of us. We miss him a lot. But now, this is a call for action. There have been 32 days now, and Hamas, just to remind you, he butchered our families, he raped our women, he beheaded our babies, and he burned us alive. This is the organization that take and kidnapped children, 9-month children, 3-year-old children. He kidnapped elderly women and men that are sick. This barbarian organization kidnapped 240 plus civilians And every day now, you never know what they can do to them. I want to take to everyone here for having us, to the American government that help us, but it's not enough. We need help now. We don't know what is their condition. This is a call for action. And this is a wake-up call, not only for Israel, not only for the Jewish community. This is a wake-up call for all of you here, all of America, all of Europe. You are next. You are next. And we should do everything that we can to stop these atrocities to come and ever again. We need to remember 7th of October and do whatever that we can to stop this, Sorry. Thank you again. Thank you.
The family's time is very short, but I wanted to ask Liran if he would like to speak briefly and share your story as well. Welcome you.
Hello everyone, my name is Liran Berman, and on October 7, my life stopped when my two younger brothers, Gali and Ziv Berman, were kidnapped. I'm also from Ido and Yonatan kibbutz, Kfar Aza, on the border of the Gaza Strip. My whole family is living there. My father, my mother, my second brother, and my twin brother. They were in a certain age that all their life was ahead of them. 26, without any obligation. They worked, they partied, they cheered for their favorite football team, they traveled around the world as a family, with friends. And on October 7th, they were kidnapped from their beds in their safe rooms. Sorry, it's difficult. Like Yonatan said, we are pleading you, the world, to help us, to speak with Hamas. We have no clue what's happened to them. We only know that they are in Gaza. We don't know if they are injured, if they are together, if they are still alive. For 31 days, for a whole month, my community was butchered in Kfar Aza. We've been to more funerals in a week than I've been in my entire life. 10 days after the October 7th, the military came to us and told us that both of them are kidnapped. It's been too long for us to not know anything, to not hear anything, to know that the Red Cross hasn't entered to see the injured, that the Western world hasn't heard anything from the terrorist organization Hamas, who act like ISIS. I want to thank you all for having us here, for giving us a voice to speak to you, to the American people, to the Congress. It's appreciated. We need action. We need action now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we want to thank these families again for their courage and their willingness to share your harrowing stories. And I will say again and reiterate once more, we will stand against these atrocities, and we will stand with Israel, and we'll stand with each of you and your families. We'll be praying for you, and we'll be taking action, because that's what we're going to do here. That's what's called for. I know that your time is short and you have to leave. I want to thank Jay and Jordan Sekulow, the American Center for Law and Justice, for helping facilitate the visit today. I know you have a tight itinerary, so we'll allow you all to step off the stage, if you will. We're going to hear next from Corey Mills, who is one of our newest members of the House Republican Conference and someone who has been directly engaged in rescue efforts over there. And I'll let him tell you a little bit about his experience because it's just as harrowing. Corey?
Thank you so much. As you just heard from the very powerful testimony of the families of those who have been taken hostage on October 7th, the barbarism that had taken place. You know, I'm a father. I've got my prepared remarks, but I'm a father. And I can't imagine the amount of pain and grief that many of these families are facing. And very much like we won't forget America's 9/11, nor should we ever forget Israel's October 7th. I want to thank House GOP leadership and the team for everything that you guys are doing, and we will continue our prayers this morning for those families. I'd also like to recognize those brave families and for all who are dealing with this today. I'm praying for your loved one's safe return. We won't forget, and we won't give up. Just a few weeks ago, on October 7th, a horrible event occurred, and I knew that it was time to take action. You know, as Speaker Mike Johnson and the rest of the leadership has talked about, the time for talk is over and the time for action is now. On October 11th, I went into a parent country, if you will, and started conducting ground evacuations. During that time frame, I was able to successfully get 32 Americans out on the first day, personally, and 45 out the second day, going through areas of the West Bank, through Jerusalem, Tiberias, Haifa, Nazareth, and other areas, doing consolidations and making continual efforts to try and pull Americans out who have been trapped, stranded, or left behind by the Biden administration. Well, I'm honored to have been able to get more than 200 people at this point out of Israel, including a plane that we negotiated and worked with Mercury One in Glenbeck. We were able to get 159 more passengers out just a week ago. We must not forget about those who are still stranded, however, including the innocent hostages that Hamas, the Iranian-backed terrorist organization, still has in their control. The bottom line is that Joe Biden, time and time again, has proven he is not prioritizing the well-being of the American people at home or abroad. We saw it during the botched Afghan withdrawal of 2021, where I actually went over with a team of mine and conducted the first successful overland rescue of a mother and 3 children born and raised in Amarillo, Texas. We're now seeing this across the Middle East and across the world. Both times, a team of former special operations members has had to step up as a result of Joe Biden and his administration's failures to do so. While I was on the ground in Israel, I heard horror stories from the Americans who were trying to get home with no support from the State Department. And in many cases, when they would request support, they would receive an electronic form and no further follow-up. 2.5 weeks after we've gotten people out from Israel, now the State Department is trying to contact them to determine their whereabouts. They were faced with extremely limited options for travel. We're receiving absolutely no correspondence from the embassy itself. And under Joe Biden's failed foreign policy agenda, we've emboldened adversaries like the Iran-backed Hamas terrorist organizations and left our key allies vulnerable in their positions today. It has now been over a month since Hamas terrorists took innocent American hostages, and yet we have no resolution and no plan or strategy by the administration. To the families that were here with us today, I want to say that I'm praying for the safe return of your loved ones, and will continue to work with my colleagues here in the GOP leadership to hold Biden's administration accountable for their failures to protect the American lives in Afghanistan and Israel. We will not stop putting pressure on Joe Biden's administration to bring these innocent Americans home so that they can reunite with their loved ones. I want to thank you all for covering this. God bless you. God bless this leadership. God bless this great country. With that, I'll turn it over to our great whip, Mr. Tom Emmer.
Thank you, Corey. 1 month ago today, the world watched as Hamas terrorists committed the worst massacre of Jewish people in a single day since the Holocaust. They burned babies alive, gunned down innocent civilians, slaughtered families, and took hundreds of civilians hostage, including women, children, and the elderly. The stories we have heard from that day are heartbreaking and haunting, but we must not forget them. Today, we have the honor of being joined by several families, having been joined by several families who had their own loved ones taken hostage by Hamas. They bravely share their stories so that we won't forget, and the world won't forget, what kind of barbaric evil Israel is fighting against. To the families that were here with us, I want you to know that House Republicans are with you, and we join you in calling for the safe return of your family members and all hostages from Gaza. And to everyone else listening, let me be very clear. The state of Israel has a right to exist and to defend its people. And Israel is completely justified in its mission to eradicate Hamas once and for all. So long as Republicans are in the majority, this House will proudly stand with Israel. And now I turn it over to our great majority leader, Steve Scalise.
Well, thank you, Whip Emmer. And it's heartbreaking when you listen to the stories of Doris, of so many others. Last Friday, we had some other family members of those who were slaughtered on the 7th, those who still have hostages that are taken in Gaza, and all they want is their family members back. This Republican majority will continue to stand with Israel in the right to defend themselves, to eliminate Hamas, and to get the hostages back. This is not a time to be talking about ceasefires, pauses. Hamas gave that up on the 7th when they went into villages and slaughtered people, when they attacked music festivals, peaceful music festivals, mowing down people, taking more hostages, including American citizens too. And so this is a war. It's a war that the people of Israel are resolved to confront. It's a war that we here in the United States are going to stand with Israel every step of the way to make sure these families get the relief they need to get their family members back. Hopefully, pray to God their family members are still alive. And we're going to continue saying those prayers, but we're also going to be there every step of the way with them as well. So our resolve has never been stronger. We need to stand with Israel. We need to stand up against the anti-Semitism that we continue to see here. It's disturbing, it's alarming, but it shows you that this is a time that we need to continue to be strong in our support of Israel, but also strong in our resolve against the evils and the atrocities that seem to pop their heads up in ugly times like this. With that now, turn it back over to our speaker.
Thank you all for your patience this morning. It's been a different kind of day here, but we wanted to give you an opportunity, as we regularly do every week, for a few questions if there are any. Yep, back.
What exactly should the Biden administration do differently in Israel right now to handle the situation better? And what's your plan to avert a government shutdown at this stage?
Well, as you know, we passed a bipartisan Israel support measure, which is exactly at the level that was requested by the White House and Israel, $14.5 billion. We included a pay-for, and unfortunately, some of our Senate Democrat friends have taken issue with that. What our point has been and what we are requesting, urging the White House and the Senate Democrats to do is to complete that package and get it over the line so that we can get Israel the support and assistance it needs. I mentioned I spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu on the phone a week ago and told him we would be there for him. About 24 hours ago, I spoke with my counterpart, the Speaker of the Knesset, and told him the same. We're resolved to help, and we want to do that, and House Republicans have done our part. With regard to the funding of the government, we're working earnestly on that. We certainly want to avoid a government shutdown. It's a dangerous time around the world right now. We recognize that, and we're doing our job. So we had a very, I would call it a refreshing, constructive family conversation in our House Republican Conference meeting an hour ago. Very deliberate, positive discussions about the many options that are on the table, and we'll be revealing what our plan is in short order.
The United States has increased its military presence in the Middle East waters, in particular with strike groups and even submarines. Do you think that's enough of a deterrence to prevent this from spreading?
Well, we hope so. I mean, I believe what we're trying to do is send a strong signal. We stand with Israel, and this conflict does not need to escalate. You know, again, the stories that you've heard, and many others that we've all heard, are so staggering what they're doing to innocent civilians. And this is clearly, as we've said so many times, good versus evil. The United States stands with the good, and we're going to stand with Israel, and that show of force, I think, is intentional and appropriate.
Obviously, the package y'all passed, the Senate doesn't want to pass it. Would you attach Israel aid to kind of any CR that comes out of the House? Is that
Well, I'm not going to tell you what the CR will entail yet, but I will tell you that we are urging consistently and very appropriately to get Israel done and finished. It's an urgent necessity. You know, some of our Senate colleagues took issue with the pay for that we put in there, but I made the point that we can take care of our allies and obligations and get our own fiscal house in order. Don't forget, we have a $33.6 trillion federal debt. The Treasury Department under the Biden administration said a little more than a week ago that we are going to need to borrow more than $1.5 trillion over the next 2 quarters to keep our government in operation. And we have to do these things simultaneously, and I believe we can. So we're urging that support as quick as we can.
Can you just tell us more specifically when you expect to make a decision on a CR? Because again, just being 11 days out, we're getting very close to that clock. Also, can you walk us through this ladder CR approach for people who may not understand that, and why consider something new when you're less than 2 weeks out?
Well, listen, our number one objective here is to take care of our obligations and do it in a responsible manner. We want to be good stewards of the public's treasury and treasure. And because we're in the situation that we're in, deeply in debt, we have to do this. We have to think about this differently. So with regard to the latter CR, or maybe a 2-tiered CR, it's one of the ideas that has been discussed. There's nothing magical or mysterious about it. It would just be effectively 2 phases. You would do one part, a subset of the bills by a December date, and the rest of it by a January date. The other alternative is a CR that would go into January with certain stipulations. But again, I'm not going to show you all the cards right now. We have some very constructive and I think very positive discussions going on. I think it should be palatable to our colleagues in the Senate because they understand we've got to get the job done. I'll tell you, I'm very encouraged, and I think the American people are encouraged when they see the hard work that's being done here. We made a commitment that we will get back to the business of actually passing appropriations bills. That has not been done here in a long, long time, as you all know. And so 12 separate appropriations bills moving through the process in regular order. We're running up against the clock on November 17th, and we're obviously aware of that, but we are going to get the job done, and we're taking care of that business. So I'll give you more details soon. Let me go front row, sorry.
So when it comes to this CR, obviously, as Nicole just mentioned, we're 11 days away. Can we expect to vote this week on a CR? Are we looking at potentially next week? And when you bring it to the floor, are you prepared to make sure you have all Republican votes, considering that the last speaker was ousted because he needed Democrat votes when it came to a CR?
Well, look, I told you we're having very constructive discussions inside the room. I believe all Republicans want to get to the same end, and that is to take care of our responsibilities. I'm not going to tell you when we'll bring it to the floor, but it will be in time. How about that? Trust us, we're working through the process in a way that I think the people will be proud of. And we've got a lot of business to attend to here, so thank you. Thanks a lot.
Speakers? Yeah.